Of all the post-Brexit scenarios out there, this may be the most dire. The game Watchdog Legions was recently previewed at a trade show, and it envisions a dystopian future where London is ruled by criminals and private armies.
Authoritarians are taking over, the economy has collapsed, private military corporations have sort of rolled in to fill the gap after the defunding of the Met and, defunding of the military. The surveillance apparatus that has protected us for, 75 years is being turned against the population. Undesirables are being filtered out.
The British government's latest projections are less extreme, but are nonetheless undesirable. Chancellor of the Exchequer Philip Hammond is warning against the consequences of leaving the EU without a deal. Hammond says a no-deal Brexit would wipe out the nearly $34 billion the UK has set aside to prop up the economy after it leaves the European Union. He says crashing out of the bloc would leave the UK economy permanently smaller. A no-deal scenario could also lead to a second referendum that Tories want to avoid. How Brexit unfolds will likely fall on the shoulders of Boris Johnson. The former Foreign and Interior Secretary is the frontrunner in the leadership race after 5 rounds of voting.
We must come out on the 31st of October because otherwise I'm afraid we face a catastrophic loss of confidence in politics.
Johnson has said he's willing to go the no-deal route to make Brexit happen. The current government says that could doom the Johnson administration before it even starts. Paolo Montecillo, TRT World.
Well, for more, let's go to Vicky Pryce in London. She's a board member at the Centre for Economics and Business Research. Welcome back to Money Talks, Vicky. Now, let's start with the UK leadership contest. The ordinary members of the Conservative Party will now have the chance to choose either Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt to be their next leader and Prime Minister. Who do you think they'll choose and why?
Well, in all probability, they will choose Boris Johnson. The reason is, of course, that the majority of anyone who's been polled in the Conservative Party, they say that what they want is Brexit. And he seems to be the one they now believe is more likely to achieve it. Jeremy Hunt, although he has now become a Brexiteer, if you like, since he's been in the cabinet, what he did originally, of course, was support Remain, so they don't necessarily trust him. So if you look at, therefore, at the chances of Jeremy Hunt being voted, I think that in as the leader of the Conservatives and then, of course, Prime Minister too, the chances are quite small. And I think it suits hugely the Johnson campaign to have an original Remainer there because they can fight him considerably more easily than would have been the case if they had, for example, Michael Gove, the other contender who's at present Environment Secretary and who was a leaver from the word go.
Now, as we heard in Paolo's story there, Boris Johnson has warned of a catastrophic loss in confidence in UK politics if the UK doesn't leave by a certain date. Philip Hammond, on the other hand, as we heard, is about to warn of a catastrophic loss in the UK economy if the UK leaves without a deal. Do you think that Boris Johnson will listen to that warning?
I think he's well aware that it will be very bad for the economy if we leave without a deal, and he's definitely quite a clever chap, and he would want to remain Prime Minister. So the last thing he'd want is to see a catastrophic decline in the economy. So he's well aware of that. So I don't think he would go for no deal. What he may do, which is what most people now think, is that he would convince the right wing of the party to accept the withdrawal deal with some small sort of enhancements, if you like, some nice words, some comfort from Europe that maybe the political agreement can be changed a bit to suit some of the concerns of the right wing of the party. He'll get that through. That's what the papers are already beginning to write. That's what people think he will go for. And if he can't get that, then he will go for an extension or possibly think of something else. But he's well aware that the economy will suffer. So he's not starting all this without that realization, and therefore the expectation is he's going to be very pragmatic, because what he really wants to do is stay as Prime Minister. This whole idea of the trust in the political system, that's already been eliminated, basically, given that we haven't really managed to get anywhere with Brexit, to the delight, of course, of those who would like to remain, has already affected quite a lot of the sort of feelings of people. Nothing has been happening in the economy because of the paralysis of Brexit. So I don't think that not leaving on October the 31st will affect anyone other than the Conservative Party. The rest of the population, I think, will survive it quite well.
Interesting, and I want to ask you about a poll that's been published in the UK by YouGov. It found that the majority of Tory members that it polled would rather see the breakup of the UK, that is Scotland leaving the UK, if it meant getting Brexit. Are you surprised by this at all?
I'm hugely surprised because it comes after another poll which suggested that they would be very happy to have Nigel Farage as their leader, who's of course the head of now the Brexit Party, who has only one thing in mind, which is to leave. And the fact that they don't worry particularly about any of the other implications is hugely worrying. And we are, as a nation, dependent on 160,000, we think, Tory members to determine what's going to happen to our economy and also whether the unity of the UK is likely to survive or not in the next few years. And I think that's really worrying. It suggests to me that something is fundamentally wrong with the way in which our political system is working. But what can you do?
What can you do indeed? OK, Vicky Pryce in London, thank you for your time as always.